Bryan, welcome. Welcome to the Tiger offices in Chennai.
Thank you for having me.
Just a quick fact for you. This is our first partner celebration or partner day, and the first ever with Databricks. So thank you for being here.
Again, thank you for having me. You guys are an important partner, so we wanted to be here and talk about our future together.
So tell us a little more about yourself, like a quick 2-minute thing on who you are, what do you do like doing at work and outside of work?
Yeah, so who I am. I think if fundamentally I'm a person who enjoys learning and growing and taking on challenges. So I've always gravitated to companies where I felt like I would be stretched to do new and interesting things. And so that has taken me to a number of different locations. And over the last 7 years, it's brought me here at Databricks, where the challenges we're facing are incredible. I mean, the conversations we have with our customers, the problems that they want to solve, where they think that we can be helpful, they're super exciting. And what I really like about the retail and consumer goods space is that when we solve those problems, I can see my solutions in the things that the experiences that I have as a consumer, that my wife and my children have when they go to the stores. And so I find that super exciting. Outside of here, I love those same challenges. My two big sports that I do Kyokushin karate. So if anyone knows what that is, we got one. We're going to fight after this. Full contact, bare knuckle fighting. So that's what I do outside of here. I do have some pretty bad injuries I'm nursing right now. And whitewater kayaking. Those are two things I really enjoy.
So give us a sense of what is the current state as you see the market around retail, consumer goods, travel and hospitality. What are some of the growth drivers that you've seen? And what do you see in 2026 and beyond?
We're still in a lot of ways in this industry coming out of the pandemic, right? It feels like it was a long time ago, but it's really not. Coming out of it, there was a reshuffle in terms of what consumers spent their money on, what their preferences and their needs were, how they expressed those things. There were also some fundamental shifts in the economy that in many parts of the world have left people struggling with differing buying power, right? Inflation has really eroded consumer strength in a lot of markets, including the United States, where I'm based. And so we're seeing organizations thinking about, strategically, what is the new marketplace and how do we best position ourselves there for success? We see that with certainly the CPGs, but even the retailers, right? A lot of folks, especially with digital coming in and a preference not to go to stores that was really emphasized during the pandemic, a lot of people started getting addicted to that convenience and are even willing to pay a small premium for that. And so how do you bring people into that store experience and connect them with your brands, connect them with you as a company, when online they click a button with just about any app and get those same or similar goods brought to their home. And so that's the big focus, is making those connections and giving people a reason why.
And we were just discussing that a few minutes ago around what does conversational commerce mean? Help explain what your point of view is on that, and like where is Databricks going around conversational commerce?
Yeah, I would phrase it as, we would typically phrase it as agentic commerce, right? So there is this idea that you would engage an AI tool to help you shop. I do that a lot these days. I find that especially for things where I'm not very knowledgeable or it's really technical. One of my hobbies I didn't mention is I brew beer. I love Belgian style beer, and we don't really get good Belgian beer in America, but it requires me to have to learn about some very esoteric things. And then I got to figure out where to get it, which is really hard. And I find AI makes that so much easier. Travel's the same thing. When I travel to someplace new, there's all kinds of experiences I want to have, but I don't want to spend hours digging through sites and this and that. And so we're seeing that emerge as a core trend. And of course, when you project that forward, people are talking about where we get to a point that for many things, we completely offload our shopping activity to agents. They shop on our behalf. I'm not ready to hand over my credit card to OpenAI and say, go wild. But I do think we will start moving that direction. So there's kind of where we are and where we're headed. Um, and we're trying to navigate, like, when is the time to make those next steps forward? We went through this early on in the dot-com phase, right? When online banking came in and people were like, no way am I ever going to access such sensitive information, in the bank. I don't know about you, but I haven't walked in a bank in years, right? I do all mine on a mobile app, or occasionally I might pop open a PC. And so the shift will occur, but it takes time to build trust and to learn the patterns that really resonate with people. And so we're still very much on that journey.
If we take a look at democratizing data, and Databricks is at the forefront of that, particularly with its AI BI tools, what trends are you seeing? What are the questions you're getting back from the customer? What do they need more of?
Yeah, so okay, this is going to be a long answer. I'm sorry. I know it's at the end of the day, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we really want a 15-minute answer," but here we go. So it used to be back in the 1960s and 1970s. A lot of organizations were built around a decision structure that was modeled after the military, a very top-down. The decision makers were few and far between. They were at the very top of the org, and they gave the instruction, and the rest of the org was there to execute. When computers started coming in, this is the early emergence of analytics, and we're talking the early 1980s. We started to have conversations about shifting the decision-making ability to a little bit lower down, closer to where the action is actually taking place. And so it moved from top-level executives down to directors and managers. And of course, they needed access to data, and that data access is what empowered them to become decision makers. I think we're now seeing that move all the way down through the org, all the way out to the front lines. When you walk into a store in like the US or Europe, these large stores, what you're going to notice is they're severely understaffed. It's really hard to get people in there. And so increasingly, they're trying to figure out how to use automation, but also how to empower the few people they have to be decision makers. And so that means that we have to think about the tools that they're using very differently. And, do I need to speak more into the mic? I don't know if that cue was for me. But we're now moving into that fully distributed decision-making thing where every single person throughout the company now is empowered to a degree to make decisions and now must have access to data. I think the big shift that we're seeing with this wave is as you get closer to the front lines, when decision-making was at the executive level or moved down to the managerial level, we could have data that was a day old, a week old, a month old, right? You weren't micromanaging the business to that level. When I'm now dealing with someone who's in a physical store, they can't be making decisions off of yesterday's data. They need to understand the exact current state of things where they're working. And that's pushing us to more and more real time. So simplified data access for varied environments, more real-time data, and then also working with folks who are not classically trained in analytics and empowering them to actually ask questions and get insights that they can execute off of. So that's the big shift that we're seeing.
I think that's very insightful as we look at empowering knowledge workers. But if you take another look at it and see, where does machine learning come in there? So machine learning to those knowledge workers. So think about it as machine learning models, but at the last mile. And are you seeing that? How are you seeing that executed in the field and through Databricks?
Yeah, I think that, certainly if you're a frontline worker, you're not sitting there with a pivot table and clicking and interacting much. You're not in an environment where you could do that. Plus, when we're doing that kind of interactive exploratory work, whether we realize it or not, we're asking questions, we're formulating hypotheses about what's going on. And I think that when you're in an environment that's more hectic like this, you really just need guidance on where to go. Some lightweight, numbers that are easy to understand, nicely visualized, some clear instructions. So increasingly, we're seeing AI being folded into this, where there is some predictive capability, right? So we can help them make that leap forward. But maybe an office worker who has the luxury of staring at a chart for 15 minutes, they could jump to the same conclusion. We need to go ahead and get there for them. But we also then need to spell out, and this is what you need to do in response to this, right? And that's the big shift.
So that makes sense. We may basically, to summarize, while visualization is good for the office worker, maybe good for the knowledge worker, but the knowledge worker in a store or in a warehouse needs more actionable directions to make their life easier.
I think so. I mean, I don't want to discount the fact that there still is an element of judgment.
Yes.
They need to understand the why behind it, and they need to be able to challenge those directions, right? We've all been in situations where we've seen guidance come back from some of these tools, and we're like, that's not how I would do it. So giving them the ability to scrutinize it, and that's partly an educational process too, right? Teaching them more about the business and how we think about helping them become more effective. But yeah, it's a balance of both.
Now, let's go back onto the topic of cloud migrations. A lot of these data intelligence platforms early on were built on moving legacy workloads onto the cloud and onto Databricks. Cloud migrations have been replaced by this notion of cloud modernization. And if so, what's your take on cloud modernization?
Oh man, I think that's one of those topics that I don't hit on enough that I can give you a really great answer. I apologize on that one. It is funny though. We still do have a few customers that are not on the cloud or only use it in sparing situations. But those are few and far between. These days, a lot of our customers are trying to straddle multiple clouds. There's a tendency to want to avoid vendor lock-in, but also to have a little redundancy. I don't know if you've noticed, but AWS has had its issues, Azure has had its issues, GCP, I'm sure, is going to have its here soon. So having the ability to kind of bounce as needed.
It was more a cost conversation. Now it's like a value conversation to say, how can I move quicker, faster, get you things that your competition has, get you effective apps, get you more ML models to have a competitive advantage in the market. So our point of view is cloud modernization is here to stay.
As a head of Databricks business unit at Tiger, you deal directly with complex implementations. What's the single biggest challenge Tiger faces operationalizing and scaling production-grade AI for joint clients? And how do you solve it?
So let's take a client-focused approach. When we look at the client, data is siloed. It's stored across different data sets across the value chain. And making it unified is what we struggle with. There are change management issues at the client. There are operational issues. Technology is a driver, but not necessarily the solution around it. So what we see is how do we overcome these challenges is by bringing speed and confidence to the customer. Taking some units of work, executing on those units of work of our commitment, and then building on it. We do it well with our accelerators, and one of the accelerators is Tiger Intelligent Data Express, where we bring in trusted data from different sources into Databricks. We've used that at always on brand equity, and we've seen that effective in a few of our RCT clients on showing how their brand is performing across a 360-degree approach around a customer. So think about it. Multiple levels of data scattered all over the place. we start off small. We take one use case, bring in IDX or Intelligent Data Express, and bring that data to fruition to provide value. The other thing that we see, and when we do these implementations, is customers at different levels have a different way of expressing what their pain is. When you talk to someone in IT, they speak a different language. When you talk to someone in business, they speak a different language. We do a fantastic job on getting both these parties to talk together and bridging that gap. And then coming back to a company like Databricks and expressing, like, here's the pain points, here are the strategic initiatives that are lined up against these pain points, here are these decision makers, let's go find this champion and work together. And make it very, very easy for the client to move forward. So that's how we get customers activated, to get them out of their own way. This team prepared really, really hard for this, for you, and to welcome Databricks here. So I want to give a round of appreciation to every single one of you guys.
Absolutely.
What's your guidance? Where should we focus on 2026?
That's a tough one. We talked about the priorities that we had that we're going to focus on with our field. Definitely think in terms of solutions. If you're thinking about where to make investments, thinking about those things. But to your point earlier, I think about taking this year as to really build your brand. I didn't realize, and you guys said it multiple times, and every time it still stunned me, that 50% of your business comes from the RCT space. Like, I don't know that anybody in Databricks knows that. I mean, maybe Jason does, but Jason McIntyre, but that's something that we need to share. And I think that we need to think about consciously crafting a brand, to your point earlier about recognition, around you guys as the retail and consumer goods specialists, right? And really driving that home. So that was a big moment for me to kind of come to that realization.
So continuously bring our brand in 2026 and take your support to champion that within Databricks.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, this has been great. Thank you for the candid conversation and taking the time to speak with us.
Hey, thank you for having me.